Do you know your constitutional rights? Our founding fathers died to give every American citizen freedom of speech, due process, freedom of assembly, and the freedom to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Rise, stand tall, be bold, and be grateful for your American heritage. This is the land of the free and the home of the brave, where everything is possible. And we are the people. Well, you all know my guest today, Tony Moreno, who is running for Pittsburgh mayor. Tony is an ex-narcotics officer for over 23 years, and today he is an airborne veteran. He is also a Bible enthusiast, as both of his parents are deacons. Mr. Moreno joins me today in the studio for a one-on-one to discuss the sewerage from the Pittsburgh liberal swamp. We will cover the budget, safety, and the COVID-19 pandemic and how it affects you as a Pittsburgher. If you live in Pittsburgh, this episode is very important for you. Tony, welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
Excellent. So yeah, thank you for coming on today. And I'm excited to get through all these questions. Now tell us, what motivated you to run for mayor?
Well, I saw a breakdown in what was happening in our city. I spent 24 years protecting the residents here, and I retired, and what I saw happening was reprehensible. It was just total neglect and abuse from our city leadership, and nobody was stepping up to stop it. It was very obvious what was going on. They were depolicing before it was ever popular. Just the misuse of funds. After being frustrated with not finding anybody that I could support, somebody looked at me and said, "You have a grip on what's going on. Why don't you run?" Well, I've never been political, but these are just problems that need fixed. It's very simple. Mayor 101 is public works and public safety. So that's what brought me here.
Right. Oh, I like that. Yes. Public works, public safety. And we do need some strong leaders to rise up. So I commend you for your candidacy. Now, if you become mayor, I mean, this isn't a controversial question, but would you ensure Pittsburghers that the vaccine would not be mandatory for them?
Yes, I wouldn't make it mandatory. We can't do that to citizens of the United States of America. We make it available. We give them all the education they could possibly absorb and put to use for their own decision making for them and their families and their loved ones. I'm definitely not anti-vaccine. I think they're a wonderful thing to really bring America out of this crisis, but to force it on people is just not right. That's not how we're built, and I wouldn't make it mandatory.
Okay. And offline, you also mentioned something about natural antibodies. So what is your opinion on natural antibodies?
Well, they ignore all the reports. I've read them. They say, and my doctor has told me that my antibodies, because I've had COVID and recovered, my antibodies are equal or greater to the vaccines. And it is beyond me why they do not use that as a measure to help bring these rates down. There's so many people that have had COVID and recovered that we're wasting shots on people that don't need them. They could go out throughout our country and get to other people. So they need to be tested. That needs to be a test made available so people can show that they won't be infecting anybody or they won't get sick.
Right, and that's a good point. It also lowers the overall herd immunity as well, because if the whole population is taking a vaccine, we don't really have any natural immunity left for the next cycle or next generation as well.
I agree, and the numbers come from the AMA.
Right. Now, some blue cities are making the vaccine mandatory, for example, for restaurants or bars or other public spots. What's your opinion on that?
Well, private business can do whatever they want. It's a free world. This is their business. They put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. They invested their lives into it. And if that's what they feel they need to do, then that's what they should be able to do. They should be protected. They should not be harassed. That's their choice. And that's what this is all about. We should be able to just make choices. If there's a place where I want to go and they want me to have a mask, I'll bring a mask. I'm not going to hardline that way. When I go to see people and I go to meetings, they want a mask, I'll bring it. But when I'm really just wanting to live, I'm not going to walk around with my mask on, and I'm not going to require anybody else's.
Right. It sounds like fear is becoming the biggest virus right now in America.
It is, and they've talked about it before, way back during 9/11, that we were giving up our freedoms for fear, but really that was a false narrative because we were protecting ourselves, and they're trying to use that here by saying we're trying to protect each other with getting shots and masks, and it doesn't jibe with me. Why would we wear a mask when we have a shot or we have natural immunities? They just are repetitive. They're not able to stand on any one single subject and enforce it.
Right. And you're right. There's a lot of repetitiveness and also redundancy, like the vaccinated masking. And then, sometimes the vaccine is effective, sometimes it's not. And other times we need a booster shot and or we might need a new vaccine every year, just like the flu. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you certainly for sharing your opinions on freedom, which is very important here to the local people. Now, you just touched upon small businesses. So on that note, let's get into fiscal conservatism. According to the notes, the city received $278 million for affordable housing, $335 million for infrastructure, and according to reports, nothing has been changed. So is this the typical misallocation of funds from the left? What is your opinion and what can be done about it?
Oh, when I started seeing the numbers, it became devastating to me that first, there's so much money that comes through our urban redevelopment authority here. And you see that's where the power play is. It's a crazy situation when the mayor, we're a mayor strong city, so he runs everything. It doesn't matter how many layers that they put aside of bureaucracy, he's in charge. He appointed Ed Gainey, my opponent, as executive director. He put Daniel Lavella, a councilman, on the board. Ricky Burgess, another councilman, controls the land bank, and past Mayor Tom Murphy is a civilian contractor. And all these millions of dollars come through there, and that's grant money, and there is no grant money tree. That's our tax dollars. So when you overlay the things that they're going to spend money on with that grant money and add it to the $335 million that's coming with the infrastructure money, that's $613 million in areas that need it the most. And they make you climb through hoops, and they just keep that money from you, and it starts to spread out into these big contractors and their own pet projects, and the people who need it suffer greatly. It's like a third world country in some of these neighborhoods, and the money's right there. They have to show us where it's being spent, and they have to direct it into the hands of the communities instead of making them have, for instance, loans for small business to get a childcare facility.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying it's not reaching the right hands. So do we need some committees to help it to get to the right places, or what can we establish to resolve it?
Oh, we don't need any more committees. They have committees to review the committees, and they have meetings to schedule the next meetings, and nothing gets done. People continue to suffer, and everybody feels like they're important. We need to streamline our city. I want to make a department of neighborhoods where everything goes down to the individual neighborhood with their community leaders being in charge. They tell us what they need, and we give them the resources directly. We make sure we monitor them, and they spend our money wisely and frugally and get it to the people that need it the most, because every neighborhood's different in the city of Pittsburgh, and they all have their own needs. There's some neighborhoods that just have, they're more bountiful, but they still have needs on their streets. They need to have the access to services the way they need them. Other neighborhoods are just devastated and they need more services, and we could direct that and show everybody. We have to be transparent and accountable to our money. And once we start showing people and they could watch, they'll see the successes and how that is moved around and people are getting the things they need. It really brings a fairness back. We can match the Department of Neighborhoods requirements and needs with what the council person from that area says. If that council person's acting politically and not in line with the community, we're going to have to show the people that. Once we do that, everybody will come in line and we'll start to function better.
Very well said. And I like the fact that you're basically slamming big government and wanting to reduce the size of the bureaucracy. We don't need committees because you said we have committees to watch the committees. So, and that's a great suggestion to have the city councilmen and women in their wards kind of take leadership. And we don't need to bring more people in. We just need to increase the effectiveness of who's already there. And unfortunately, that's that's a challenge. So, okay, well, definitely thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. I'm sure that would give relief to some of the people out there because we desperately need change. Now, let's talk about the police and safety, which is a big issue on everybody's minds. But I guess we're going to first talk about it from a budget perspective, and then we'll get into the defunding of the police and the safety aspect. But $11 million has been removed from the police budget in Pittsburgh. So that's $11 million. Where has that been allocated? Where have those funds gone?
The current mayor removed $5.5 million and gave it to Ricky Burgess, took $5.5 million and gave it to Councilman Lavelle. That money came directly from the police training end of the budget. So what we do with that training is we train officers in mental health training in the crisis intervention. We have to train our horses. That's where we feed our police horses. They can't get that. We use the training budget to make sure that we're up to date in all our legal matters and our physical fitness, and it's all there, and they just took it from us. We can't put academy classes through because they took the money from the police training, and it's a big deal because right now, due to the atmosphere in the city of Pittsburgh and the lack of support, we are having more resignations than we have retirements, and it's never happened before, and it's happening at a fantastic rate. When you add those numbers with the lack of police academy classes coming through, it's devastating going into the future years because it's going to take a full year to make up the loss, and we're doubling the losses, and we're losing our most senior experienced officers. So we're facing a serious crisis. They're already defunding the police, and they're not using those funds is the issue.
And one of my responses to this has been classically, for people who want to defund the police, well, you don't want to call 911 and get a voicemail. So again, I don't understand where the logic comes from. And if you're saying, they removed $11 million, so basically this is going towards the training, like you explained, to actually help these people perform better. And you said it even relates to their mental health and things like this. So this is something that people actually want. I think what they truly want is change. They don't want to defund the police. But again, that's gotten lost somewhere in liberal la-la land, unfortunately. And, and the general population does have to suffer because of that. So I will just make the statement that I don't feel as safe if $11 million has been removed. And, like you said, it's being allocated towards the training and all that. I mean, no matter where it's being allocated, I think I probably wouldn't feel safe, or sorry, disallocated.
I can tell you that the horrific part of this is they are directing this money into programs that already exist. We have the state model for crisis intervention training, which is a 40-hour class that teaches police officers how to identify people suffering from mental illness, addiction, and poverty. We already do it. We already have plans in place. We have resources that we use currently. It's just not a promoted policy. They just lack the will to use the policy. They ignore it. And now they're pushing this money at it, at the existing policy, and changing the name of it and saying, look what you got for your $11 million. And on top of that, they are trying to press out this fairy tale policy of using social workers and group violence intervention. Well, if that were the case, you have the money. Where are these roving teams of social workers and group violence interventions crews? They should be out in the middle of these areas preventing this. We should be able to see them in action and watch how it's worked. This is their time to prove the theory, because violent crime has spiked like we've never seen before. People are being murdered downtown in the middle of daylight, and nothing's being done. So we have a tremendous problem right now with crime in the city, and the state representative's under investigation for stealing money. So when you have violent crime running around, they're talking about defunding the police, replacing the police officers with social workers and group violence initiatives. Those things are necessary, but they can't be used until people are safe. We need to apply what our police officers know, how they're trained. We have the finest trained officers in the country. They'll do the job if they had good leadership and support. Right now, they don't have that, and we need to address it.
Wow. So just a note on the funding. It sounds like you're saying they're taking a program that's already in existence, rebranding it, repackaging it, and assigning a price tag to it and kind of reviving it and saying this is where the money is going. So it's a dead program, but they're basically, so it's redundancy. That's what it sounds like. And that's really unfortunate because, like you said, it's $11 million. And if we learn from other cities, I know we're in Pittsburgh today, but if we even think about Seattle, where they did defund the police, or several either retired or quit because of the violence, their crime rates skyrocketed over 43%. So that's pretty much where we're headed if other cities follow suit. And I think that serves as a good example for us that defunding the police is dangerous, whichever way you slice the pie. But again, like you said, the wasteful bureaucracy is really something to consider because this is a lot of money and it's being wasted.
Yeah, well, we're already there. We're equal. We're just a smaller city than they are, but our numbers match or exceed what's going on in these other cities. And people can wake up every morning. There was a shooting this morning in Brighton Heights, found a man dead. Yesterday, there was one up in Arlington or Mount Washington. Somebody walked out of a house party, just an Airbnb party, walked out and was shot. So it's this unchecked violence. They know that they're not going to be pursued by the police. So they just wander around looking for their rivals because they financially do not have the means to take care of themselves. They're forced to beg the government. When the government isn't there, they go out and they get into the underground financial system where they're forced to find the needs that they have to fulfill. And with that comes violence because they're all fighting over the same territories. It's dangerous and it's unchecked and it needs to stop.
Right. And that's a good word, unchecked, because when things are unchecked, I think that what the Democratic Party has to understand that this is not utopianism. So we can't assume that crime won't occur and people will do the right thing. We have to assume they will not do the right thing. That's why we lock our doors at night. That's why we buy insurance. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of this is just common sense. We can't have unchecked violence. It just grows from there. So, okay, well.
It's right. That's right. There's good people. The Republican Democrat issue has become too on fire. When you come down and you go into these neighborhoods, everybody wants the same thing. They want to be protected and they want their streets clean and they want their kids to be able to grow up safely and get a good education and live their life as Pittsburghers. That's a common theme. It no longer applies to, there's no Republican Party in Pittsburgh as we see it right now, but they brought me in so I could continue running that way. And because I bring a level playing field, I'm coming right down the middle and just trying to say to everyone, this is not a political action. This is a people action and it's a Pittsburgh action. Everybody's in agreement with these same things on both sides that you talk about on the street level. So that's why I'm fortunate to be here.
That's a great point. So it doesn't even have to do with, this is not partisan politics. This is common sense politics. These are the concerns of the everyday citizen. Thanks for that clarification. Absolutely. So let's touch on the bike lanes. What is going on with the bike lanes in Pittsburgh? Can you describe the problem and your proposed solution?
Well, I've known this since I've started campaigning 2 years ago because I was doing the research and how this happened. I don't ever remember anybody asking if we wanted bike lanes to run entirely through our city and dominate our roads and change how we move in transportation. So once I started looking, I realized bike lanes are not for bicycles. Bike lanes are for the removal of the motor vehicle from the city of Pittsburgh. They're starting to say it in their language now, in their literature. They say things like the expansion of bike lanes, the narrowing of streets, the traffic calming efforts, speed humps, cutouts, turn circles. These are all to disincentivize driving in the city of Pittsburgh. They want to put GPS monitored parking meters to incentivize people to find other modes of travel in the city. They are closing lanes of traffic that are normal and useful for us, like Liberty Avenue is targeted to become a bus lane only. Right now, they've shut down half of the entire outbound portion of Fort Duquesne Boulevard. That causes traffic problems. They've already made Penn Avenue a one-way and took away all that parking. They're going to close 6th Street going through Market Street to cut it off from travel. And they've taken away all these parking spots. Now, it's very important that we realize the parking tax was raised because the city was underwater and they were about to get taken over by the state for their pension. Well, I spoke to somebody inside Alcoa Parking and they told me that there is a tremendous problem going on, and they don't have a plan. And that problem is they've lost so many parking spots that they don't have the ability to make up what they need to fund the pension. So what you see on the street with these bike racks being in the street taking away parking, the scooters in the street taking away parking, the cutouts taking away parking, the bike lanes taking away parking, tearing down parking garages and not replacing them. It's left us in dire straits financially. He said to me that council and the city does not have a plan to make up for that financial stream that's missing because of the removed parking spaces. And if we don't fix it, by 2023, we're going to see our pension implode. And that's a dangerous situation, because once that pension goes away, we're going to lose our city workers, and we're going to have a big, big problem. And they don't have a plan going forward. My plan is to take a look at the bike lanes, see which ones are necessary, which ones work, which ones keep people safe, which one the community wants. That's important. The communities need to be a part of the conversation. Currently, they're just telling them where they're going to put them. Right now, we go in and say, hey, if you want this, you can keep it. But downtown does not need bike lanes throughout. We're going to bring that back so the businesses can open back up. We can incentivize parking coming back in the city, get those revenues flowing, get people coming back here. They need to be able to come back to Pittsburgh, park, and enjoy everything we have. And then we need to keep them safe while they're getting out of their cars and visiting. So it's a big circular aspect, and it can be done immediately. They just don't have the will to do it.
And it sounds like you're saying their plan is nothing, and to dip into the pension funds eventually to fund this process.
Well, it's going to eradicate the pension. This is the funding process for the pension in the city of Pittsburgh. They're taking away that, and they don't have a plan to replace it going forward. So it's a devastating aspect that their Bike Pittsburgh rolling through Domi is taking away parking that funds the city. It's just bad business. It's bad leadership,
Right.
Or it's intentional. Either way, it hurts all the residents here.
It's harmful, correct. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. And we're almost out of time here, so I'm just going to give you the floor to wrap up. If there's any other words you want to say to the voters, to the residents of Pittsburgh, or on any of the questions I asked you, if you want to circle back and just add any content, now would be the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. One thing I want to touch on is the police department. You know, I'm not from here originally, so I came in and I saw how it worked, and there is a corruption inside of there, and it's not on the street police officers. We have police officers that have problems and we address them, but when the administration is corrupt inside and out, and I call it a generational incestuous corruption, it's been going on for so long, they don't even realize what they're doing is harmful. For example, the assistant chief of police currently, named Linda Barone, is responsible for $750,000 in civil rights violations where she was found guilty in federal court. One of the lawsuits is for gender bias and retaliation. The other lawsuit was for racial bias and retaliation. $750,000 in taxpayer money for civil rights violations, and she's still employed. As a matter of fact, after the first lawsuit, she got promoted to assistant public safety director. After I started talking about it out loud, they moved her out of that position and gave it to the guy who approves staples and reams of paper for the department. So it's a broken system. The chief of police needs to stand up and take the city back, take the department back, but he doesn't, because he runs at the mayor's will. There's a lot there that can be done immediately. When officers see that, they don't know what's going on, because everybody knows that it happened. Everybody knows what happened, and nothing happens to them. So I'm going to bring accountability and transparency in our police department so everybody can see it. So public works is my other big thing. We need to fund public works. We need to get job training here in the city. We need to bring manufacturing back to this city. So some of these areas where people aren't going to be in tech and meds and education, hey, our city still needs work. So we can train our residents, get them going so they can become a part of the workforce here. You know, we have a workforce out there that's waiting to get a job. They just need the training. I'll provide it. I'll put them to work, and I'll get our city beautiful again. Because what I'm looking at right now, when I pull up in an intersection, I see graffiti, trash, and weeds. That's unacceptable. So those are other things I'm going to do. And remove the pension offset. In case you don't know what that is, that's where when you're a city employee, you retire, you get the pension that you were promised. But when you hit Social Security age, the pension lowers down to where it's equal with the Social Security amount that would then be equal to your full pension. So you don't get full pensions that you worked for, you were promised. You only get one, and it's at a reduced rate. It's not fair. I don't think it's American at all. It was a social contract. You're going to go to work for the city of Pittsburgh. You are going to earn a pension, and you are going to pay into Social Security. And that's why you're going to stay there and dedicate your life to the city of Pittsburgh, and they're taking it from you. I'm going to remove that for everybody.
And a lot of people might not even have known that was an issue. So that's great that you.
Well, yeah, they go to retire and they plan on what their full pension should be in addition to Social Security, and they're looking at a pretty comfortable life. Not a great life, but a comfortable life going forward. Right now, the city of Pittsburgh is not paying police widows medical care. When the member dies, they drop them. It goes against the contract. It's language in there since 1979. That's devastating. I served. I expect my family to be taken care of because that's what I was promised. That's what I put my life on the line for. And they are not doing it now. And they know it. They made us sue them. We're in court right now trying to deal with it.
Wow. Sounds like there's a lot of ancillary problems going on. So, again, we need good leadership. Thank you for your passion, for your motivation to run. We certainly need leaders like you to rise up, especially at a time like this. So thank you so much for coming on the show and educating the voters as well and the viewers, because people do need to know what's going on. And we also need to hear it from someone who actually knows the truth. So thank you for spreading that message today. And I want to wish you all the best for your campaign.
I appreciate it. Check me out at realsteelmayor.com. We can win, Pittsburgh. You just need to get out and vote like it was a presidential election. The win's there to be had. Everybody's ready so we can move forward and make Pittsburgh just what everybody came here for, what it is, the great 412 and the black and gold. I appreciate it and have a good day.
Amen and amen. Okay, viewers, well, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to me on YouTube. And remember, it is an election year. Do your research and cast the right vote. That's all for now. See you next week.
Godspeed.